Bugonia is the latest movie from Yorgos Lanthimos, who you know for films like Poor Things, The Favorite, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, among many others. And this movie stars Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons and will be out in theaters this weekend. Michelle Fuller, played by Emma Stone, is the CEO of a major pharmaceutical company who is taken hostage by Teddy, played by Plemons, as well as his cousin Don, played by Aidan Delbus. And why have they kidnapped her? Well, they believe that she is an alien from outer space who is hell-bent on destroying humanity. And they want to find a way to save the world before anything bad happens. And they believe that she might be the key to that. And that leads to a chain of events that gets increasingly more bizarre as the movie progresses. That is the spoiler-free version of the plot that I can give you, because a lot more happens in Bugonia, but you're gonna have to see that for yourself. I was very excited for this movie though, because Yorgos Lanthimos for me is an incredibly fascinating director. I've liked a lot of his movies, and even when I feel like all of his swings don't work the way that some others might, for example, Kinds of Kindness last year, I didn't love that as much as I loved Poor Things. I still think that there is some really great stuff to get from every one of his projects. And the same can be said for Bugonia. Cutting right to the chase, I think he once again does a really great job of really throwing you into this very bizarre premise, but still making it so in a way that you are entirely invested in how events will play out, and giving them a very specific kind of energy, something that only Yorgos Lanthimos can bring to his projects. There is a lot of that over here, and however, over the top and wacky and weird the premise gets and how many, things that eventually leads to, I think the commitment there from him to make those things happen the way that they do is really, really great. And it moves at a rollicking pace as well. Once she is kidnapped and once she's brought to where Teddy and Don are living, Michelle, that is, the movie, it immediately locks you in. Emma Stone is excellent in the movie. That's something that shouldn't surprise you. She's an incredible talent, and once again, she brings her all to this role. I thought she was extraordinary in a lot of moments over here, particularly when really handling, again, just how crazy this situation is. And as is the MO with a lot of what Yorgos does, the darker comedic moments with the more serious and intense moments, the way that those are juggled over here and her performance with those, I think was fantastic. I also really love Jesse Plemons in this, who is someone who has very much just gone down this rabbit hole of conspiracies and thoughts that are just sort of feeding into his brain now, and thinking about, the way the world works in a way that it doesn't exactly, go the way that we might think the world works. But the fact that the movie again kind of plays around with this aspect of, how things that we read about and things that we learn about can sometimes sort of bore themselves into our brains in such a way that it starts to affect us in more ways than one. Plemons plays that really well. And Aidan Delbus, who I believe this is his debut role, incredible find. I thought he was really, really great over here. And some moments with Don I thought were extremely effective. And there's some very heartwarming moments to him. I really was surprised by what his character brought to it as well. And those aspects that I was talking about, the idea of, things eventually entering our brains, information that, is really starting to drive us to a point where, reality is becoming more and more blurred. That's something that we see in reality right now. I mean, look at the world around us. So many things have been amplified recently over the years, and to see where that has eventually now led people and, changed the talking points, or even shifted entirely, the people who they used to, like, from what they used to be to what they are now. The way that the movie also looks into that, I think that it had some really affecting moments in there, which really just showcase just how far gone some things can be, to the point that it can create some really crazy situations, some really not great situations. All while also sprinkling in a lot of emotional beats, some that were surprisingly quite profound, and a couple of things that really moved me, in fact, especially as the movie was heading towards its third act. And I was a big fan of a lot of what was done over here. As with a lot of Yorgos's movies, it's incredibly well shot, some outstanding cinematography in here, and some really well executed scenes. A great score from Jerskin Fendrix, who I think did an incredible job with things like Poor Things earlier. I think he did a magnificent score with that. I think he does a really great job over here too. And again, just the composition of this, as you start to get more and more answers as to what's going on. I think that it was handled quite nicely. There's a couple of things that I wish we had a little bit more time with, I will say. There is something regarding stuff that's going on with Teddy and Don where I thought, well, that's really fascinating. And there are some aspects of that which I feel like they are addressed, but not as much as I think that they really end up having an impact. I think there's a couple of moments, character moments over there that I feel could have been perhaps a little bit stronger as a result of that. And so I feel like the movie does every now and then hold itself back from going even more into just how outlandish a lot of what's going on with Bugonia is. That was something that I did feel. There were moments where I felt like it was restraining itself just a smidge, from going even more crazy, even more over the top. And I feel like those would have amplified the movie's premise a lot more. Beyond that, though, I really had a good time with this. Now, without spoilers, I will say that there is a chance that Bugonia might not work for everybody, mainly because of how things are, eventually play out. There are some swings that it does take, which are going to be potentially a bit divisive for people. You might like what they do towards the end of the movie. You might not like it at all. When I was walking out of the screening today, I heard people really, really happy with it, and I heard some people not very happy with it. So I'm very curious to see what the responses are going to be to the movie once it does, officially hit theaters on Friday, because I feel like there's going to be some interesting conversations around it. But for my money's worth, I was really impressed overall with Bugonia. I think it was a really, really good time. And while it does have a few things here and there, which I think could have been a little better, I was still very happy with it overall. And yeah, I do think that this is, pretty solid work from Yorgos overall. I'm going to give Bugonia an 8.5 out of 10. So let me know what you guys thought of Bugonia if you've seen it already. I know it opened in some select theaters in last week. So if you had a chance to already see it, let me know what you guys think. Guys, thank you very much as always for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the movies.